Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Crisis-level talks about stray animals failed to get off the ground at Westmoreland Municipal Meeting. Unfair treatment. Freedom Imagineers Group blasts government for treatment of migrants seeking asylum. And later in sports, Spain and Sweden books semi-final spot in FIFA Women's World Cup. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shane Masters and here are the details. We begin with an update on the logistical issue at the Sangster International Airport, where Normalcy is still returning to the facility after Thursday's disruption. The runway at the facility reopened Thursday afternoon after being closed for hours. Reports from hoteliers and sections of Western Jamaica indicated they had to put in place arrangements to receive guests more than 12 hours after they were scheduled check-in. Now, some arrived at their hotels in the early hours of Friday morning, despite landing in Jamaica early Thursday. They were among thousands of travelers inconvenienced for most of Thursday. The disruption at the Sangster Airport was linked to an issue with the runway, which is undergoing expansion work. The shutdown caused flights to be rerouted to Kingston's Norman Manley International Airport and several other Caribbean destinations. The Transport Minister, Darrell Vaz, has ordered that he be provided with a report by Monday, and as promised, persons will be held responsible for the damaging shutdown. One local government representative in Westmoreland blasted some of his colleagues for not turning up to Thursday's Municipal Corporation meeting for crisis-level talks about stray animals in the parish. TVJ News has been reporting extensively on the issue for the past 2 weeks after 3 persons lost their lives due to stray cattle crossing roads at night. Among the deceased is a police officer who crashed into a cow while driving his JCF-assigned motorcycle. Another 4 people have also been injured in crashes with cattle. The authorities admit the situation is now at crisis levels. The roadway between Negril and Savlamar is the most impacted.
Actually, really disappointed that at this morning's sitting we are not seeing any of the councillors representing the People's National Party here today, having circulated this motion for this meeting to address these important issues. It cannot be, Chairman, that we have a municipal space that we are responsible for and we are not aggressively pursuing measures to actually facilitate the motoring public, the pedestrians, and those who utilize the major thoroughfare. And persons are losing their lives. We know it's a major issue as it relates to stray animals, but we want to know what is the corporation doing in terms of regularizing or putting in place a pound so that these animals can be picked up and make the roadway safe for users.
Human rights group Freedom Imagineers is in disagreement with the government's position that the Haitians are being treated fairly and in keeping with the fundamental rights outlined in Jamaica's Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms. Halcyon Burke has the details.
In a media release on August 8, the National Security Ministry said it acknowledges the anxiety among interested groups in anticipation of an outcome from the process. But the ministry stressed that the preliminaries are still being completed. Additionally, the ministry said it was yet to receive the applications which were completed in view of the attorneys, with their own interpreter providing the translation services. But the human rights group says immigration officers completed the screening interview phase of the asylum procedure without remedying some of their concerns. The group says it is worried that arrangements were not made for child applicants to be interviewed, as this undermines their right to be heard and to have their best interests taken into account as a consideration in the decision-making process. It says despite its requests, immigration officers concluded the interviews without establishing a trauma-sensitive approach that would have allowed applicants to tell their story. In addition, the human rights group says the applicants and their legal representatives are still being excluded from access to basic information, including the written statements of the applicants and application forms completed by immigration officers. Freedom Imaginaires is again requesting an urgent meeting with the Ministries of Foreign Affairs and National Security to discuss the issues facing the 37 Haitians seeking asylum in Jamaica. Founder of Freedom Imaginaires, Maleni Alain, is requesting that the ministries respond today by 3:30 p.m.
We're also asking for access to information, such as the written statements that the applicants would have produced during the interview process and the actual application forms that were completed by immigration officers, because this information, of course, would be critical to the preparation of the applicant's case in the asylum determination process.
Ms. Alain says the applicants are being denied their basic rights, including the right to due process, the right to legal representation, the right to access basic information on the asylum procedure, and the right to an effective asylum procedure. Hal Shane Burke, TVJ News.
The National Water Commission, NWC, is asking residents of Colbeck Heights and surrounding communities in Old Harbour St. Catherine for patience as they try to restore normal service as soon as possible. Karen Simpson reports.
For more than a month, residents of Bannister, Bullet Tree, Davis, Brethrentown, Colbeck Housing Scheme and Colbeck Heights have been without piped water. That's because the Graham Well facility that distributes water has been out of operation. Delano Williams is acting corporate public relations manager at the National Water Commission.
There is a mechanical issue at the pump which forced us to shut down and to extract one of the relifts. It requires significant overhauling. Some of the material was not readily available on the island. And so we're taking steps now to import, whether the parts or replacement.
Prior to this issue, there was an internal electrical problem at the facility which disrupted water supply for a month.
From June, we don't have any water in here. We have to be buying water. One jar of water for $700. And the tank, we have to pay between $5,000 to $8,000 for the tank of water.
The NWC has been providing a temporary fix while noting that well rehabilitation works are slated for another system.
For the time being, however, a number of the areas we've been striving to serve them, Bannister, Brethrentown, a number of the other surrounding communities. The challenge with Colbeck Heights, or Red Ground as it is called, is it is at a higher elevation. And based on this, whatever pressures might be on the network are not sufficient. So we have been supplementing this with trucking, and we have been delivering water to a number of customers.
Mr. Williams also addressed the issue of residents still receiving water bills.
Any customer who is active, we would still have them as a billable customer. Now, what would be different is you shouldn't be seeing consumption for the period that the system is out. Where we truck water to these customers, they will, however, receive a bulk water charge at the end of the period for any amount that was delivered. Any persons who may have estimated charges in the event that their meter was not read, then we will review those charges.
Karen Simpson, TVJ News.
The Hanover police are this afternoon urging residents to be careful when accepting relatives and friends who migrate from crime-plagued areas. The calls follow Tuesday's attack in Green Island, Hanover, where 5 people were shot, 2 fatally. Anthony Lugg has the details.
48 hours after the deadly attack in Green Island, Hanover, and residents are still trying to come to terms with the killings.
No one knows what happened. No one knows the conflict or whatsoever.
The police are yet to establish a motive for the attack on the construction workers. However, investigators are following several leads. News that the deceased men recently moved to the parish has reignited concerns about migrating criminals in Hanover. Superintendent Sharon Beeput is commanding officer for the Hanover Police Division.
We are in the middle and we are bordered by 2 other parishes that a lot of activities takes place. Persons are pushed from St. James over here and they are pushed from Westmoreland into our space. So you find sometimes some relatives are very accommodating and they take in these persons from the various communities and have them at home.
Despite numerous warnings from the police, the practice continues. Superintendent Beeput is again urging residents to be cautious when accepting relatives who migrate from crime-plagued areas.
I believe relatives must find out from person unless you are a party to criminal activities. you accept them readily. But if you are not involved in these activities, find out from your loved ones, why do you want to come and stay at my house? What is happening back in your space? You need to go back.
Persons are being encouraged to contact the police to conduct background checks on strange people in their area.
In these cases, find out from the police officers, tell them what is happening. This person is in here visiting me, and we want to know. He told me this is the situation, but I am not of the belief that it is so. So could you check him out for me? And then if we have that sort of cooperation from our citizens, I think we'll have a better flow in terms of activities within these spaces.
According to the crime statistics provided by the Jamaica Constabulary Force, up to July 29, 2023, 39 murders were recorded in Hanover. Anthony Lugg, TVJ News.
3 high-powered rifles and a handgun were seized in Salt Spring, St. James on Thursday as members of the security forces intensify operations in the area. An assortment of ammunition was also seized by the security forces. Members of the security forces have been in the area in search of wanted men. Superintendent Aaron Samuels is the acting commander for the division. He says the operation was to capture Robert Calvert, otherwise called Ziggy, who is wanted by the police for shooting with intent.
Whilst we did not capture the wanted person, we were able to disarm him of 4 weapons, which includes 3 rifles and 1 handgun. One of the 3 rifles is said to be a multi-caliber weapon, which means it can fire almost any type of round that they have on hand.
Superintendent Samuel says several gangs operate within the area and the police in the division will continue to work to break them up.
And this one, which is led by Robert Calvert, O.C. Ziggy, is one that has in recent time been, they have been causing some havoc within the space. So we are very elated that we are able to disarm them of these weapons.
And it's now time for the Business Minute.
NCB Financial Group says it is working to reduce its cost-to-income ratio. Interim CEO Robert Almeida says the company is targeting at least a 10 percentage point reduction in the next year. At the end of June, NCB Financial's cost-to-income ratio was 78%.
Each 1% of that cost-to-income ratio represents about $1.5 billion. And if we reduce that cost-to-income ratio from the low 70s to the 60s to get to about 60%, that would be like 10 percentage points. And that 10 percentage points in cost-to-income ratio, going from around 70-ish% to around 60-ish%, would be worth about $15 billion, which is about $6 per share of NCB. Now, when you think, why is that so important? Because that gives us options so that we don't have to do trade-offs then. We actually can do both. We can continue to strengthen our capital so that we can withstand any kind of storm, which is what we have been doing, but we can also make sure that we're paying dividends.
Cost-to-income ratio refers to money spent to operate versus how much the company earns from revenue. Britain's economy realized unexpected growth in the second quarter, laying the foundation for more interest rate hikes from the Bank of England. Official data on Friday showed the economy grew 0.2% in the second quarter. The figures sent the pound sharply higher against the US dollar and euro. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Hal Shane Burke.
Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, the Caribbean Community CARICOM leaders' 2-day retreat in Dominica, scheduled for August 18 and 19, has been postponed. Some regional officials were not going to attend. The retreat was intended to review regional governance reports and strengthen cooperation before their next midterm summit in Guyana. Climate financing and the need for reform of the international financial system were also on the agenda.